Welcome to the channel. Welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. I'm Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and let's jump straight into it. There is absolutely never a dull moment with Manchester United, just in general. I was just going to say within the transfer window, but just in general at the moment, and there is nothing more embarrassing than the way some of the players in our bomb squad have behaved. I don't think this transfer window, showing their true colours, and nothing more embarrassing than what's happened with the whole Antony situation. So I'm going to kick off there. Now, for those that haven't seen, last night Sky reported that United have accepted a bid from Real Betis for the permanent transfer of Antony. He has been granted permission to travel to finalise his move, up to both Antony and Betis to agree on personal terms. Then we had Ben Jacobs coming out saying the package agreed is £25 million with a 50% sell-on clause. Antony must now finalise personal terms. And then The Athletic did a big report suggesting the same thing. £25 million, 50% sell-on clause, and, you know, he's been given permission to fly and all of this for Jazzle. Fabrizio Romano, however, though, did say no medical, no travel imminent for Antony at this stage, as Real Betis and Manchester United are still negotiating. Details of permanent move, 50% sell-on clause, salary, exit conditions being discussed. Betis on it with their best efforts, but still waiting for green light. And then literally within about 45 minutes or to an hour later, the deal was off. So Real Betis sources saying the club has withdrawn its offer for Antony. Sources say Betis cannot afford a transfer fee, nor the amounts of the player, the player is supposed to receive. And this is what's been driving me insane with this deal anyway. Why are they trying to buy a player that they can't afford and can't afford his wages? So the deal's off. The Real Betis have actually released a statement saying, yeah, no, we've withdrawn our offer now to Manchester United. And the whole scenario is because effectively they can't afford his wages and they won't pay his severance package. Antony wants a severance package from United. And Betis are saying they can't afford him and can't afford his wages. This has been the same the entire transfer window. I've been saying this from pretty much day one of the window, that they can't afford him, they can't afford his wages, yet they're trying to sign him. And then Antony's been rejecting offers from other teams and hasn't even agreed personal terms with Betis. What an absolute embarrassment both parties are. This has nothing to do with United, I don't think. We're not like what more can we do? We've accepted offers from other teams for Antony. He's been the one sat on his hands saying, no, I only want to go to Betis, and all the time hasn't agreed personal terms with them. Like, what the actual F have they been playing at? What an absolute embarrassment for both Real Betis and Antony this deal is. So the key to any deal now being formalised is Antony / Betis agreeing terms, or Manchester United contributing to an exit package. Betis will only finalise if Antony's wage demands drop. United sources still insist he has permission to travel, but Betis are delaying. And then sources from the Spanish end are saying that Antony's set to be owed more than €6 million by United, which is the difference in wages for the remaining years of his contract. Betis are unwilling to even contribute to that amount, so they won't even pay like half of it. Antony unwilling to waive it because his wages will drop over longer Betis contract anyway. So they've had all summer, in fact, they've had since January when he was on loan there, to come up with an idea, to come up with some wages, severance pays, all of these things. It's not like it's a surprise. It's not like it should be a last-minute shock to say, hold on, I've got to take a pay cut to go to Betis and I'm going to be owed money from compensation from United. Who's paying that? Like, what an absolute embarrassment. It's just absolutely terrible. So God knows where we go from here, because, you know, we do want to get Antony off the books and obviously sell him. But I'd be half inclined just to say, right, F you, you've messed on. Your chances of leaving are gone. You can come back in the first team and train and do all of that stuff, because I don't necessarily think he's, he's a troublemaker in that regards. But he's not going to get minutes, not going to play, and then good luck going to the World Cup. And I just think it's absolutely embarrassing, this whole situation. And it's not United's fault. It's the player and obviously Real Betis' fault. So, but we'll have to wait and see what plays out now. I mean, he's rejected offers from Como, from Saudi, from Turkey. I mean, the Saudi and the Turkish transfer windows are open later than ours. So if this deal doesn't get done between now and the end of the the end of the our transfer window closing on Monday, then maybe there could still be some movement there as well. But what an absolute joke of a transfer. It's been infuriating me all summer. It's still infuriating me now. It's just embarrassing from their ends. Like how have they not agreed personal terms and severance pay and all that by now? And then Betis coming out saying, yeah, we've made an offer and then we've accepted the offer, but then withdrawn it saying, yeah, we can't afford it. Like, honestly, have a word with yourselves. It's absolutely shocking. But give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below. Now, sticking with exits, let's go for the rest of the exits. So we've actually had a here we go today. So Rasmus Højlund to Napoli, here we go. Verbal agreement done between all parties involved. Loan deal for €6 million fee with buy option clause to become mandatory under certain conditions worth €44 million. Højlund said yes to Napoli days ago, set for medical in next 24 hours. So Fabrizio Romano confirming that here we go. Rasmus Højlund to Napoli. €50 million if the loan it's an option to buy that becomes mandatory under certain conditions. The conditions are believed to be Champions League football. Maybe there's some personal conditions in there as well, but we'll know once we get the full details and the full announcements and stuff. £50 million or €50 million for Rasmus Højlund. Not a bad deal. Not a bad deal considering the form that he's in and the fact that we bought Sesko in. Sometimes when you buy a player in without selling one, it does weaken your hand a little bit as well. I actually don't think that's a bad deal. And I genuinely hope he does what McTominay has, goes to Napoli and revives his career and start scoring goals and develops from there. Because I do think there's a player in Hojlund. I just don't think we've seen it. And I don't think the circumstances around United have helped. But, he hasn't also helped himself as well. I think the blame is on both sides. His performances were absolutely shocking last season, to the point where it was actually almost sad to watch Rasmus Højlund just getting thrown around like a rag doll on the floor most games and then not being given the ball. So I think there's an argument both sides. But wish him all the best. And hopefully he can revive his career, because I do think there is a player somewhere there. So hopefully maybe he's just not built for Premier League football. Nothing wrong with that. And then let's go through the rest of the bomb squad. So Jadon Sancho answers on a postcard what's happening with him. Peter Hall said that Roma are still pushing to sign Jadon Sancho ahead of Monday's transfer deadline, even though the Manchester United outcast has already rejected the Italian giants once. And that has not deterred Roma, however, who are planning to return with another offer, one that would have to be more attractive to the player before the transfer window closes. Again, players showing their true colours, isn't it? With in regards to they leave United, slag United off, say freedom and all this stuff, but then when it comes to the crunch time and they actually have to take a pay cut, they're like, yeah, actually, no, maybe it's not so bad here after all. Maybe I do want to keep around with the wages. Same with Antony as well. Obviously went to Betis, did an interview saying how his mental health was affected being at United, and I don't want to dismiss that as someone that's got mental health problems themselves. I'm not saying that that's a negative, but then when it comes to actually leaving, you're like, yeah, no, I want my money, which clearly is then more important to what your mental health is, which I don't understand. But yeah, it's just frustrating, isn't it? These two players, honestly, the two worst transfers in our history as well. I think Sancho and Antony, and lo and behold, the two worst players we're trying to get rid of that we can't get rid of neither as well. It's absolutely embarrassing. Reports from Germany, though, are saying that Dortmund players want Jadon Sancho back, but management has reservations about his behaviour under Kovac, who values discipline. Maxi Bia's likely departure, evidenced by Fabio Silva's arrival, could free up funds for Sancho on deadline day at a reduced salary and fee. Sancho has rejected other clubs in anticipation of a potential Dortmund move. So Dortmund could potentially be back on. We've had reports the other day, though, saying that Dortmund didn't want him because they're worried about his attitude and, his behaviour and stuff like that. But we'll need to wait and see how that plays out. But as I mentioned there, two of the worst signings in our history, I think Sancho and Antony, two of the worst, like the ones that we are struggling the most to get rid of, not because we're not willing to or anything like that. They're obviously happy to take the wages. They're clearly happy with the money and don't want to move on, even though both of them have slagged the club off when they've been away as well, but clearly okay to be paid by that club as well. Ridiculous. But give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below. Now let's go for the Mainoo news. So, this one hasn't been put to bed anywhere at the moment. So Napoli, Newcastle and Roma all want Kobbie Mainoo on loan. Manchester United need him as cover and would only likely let him go for a substantial fee if they can bring in another player who is better who is as good or better than Mainoo. That came from Andy Mitten, suggesting that we would only let him go for a substantial, or we would let him go for a substantial fee. So I think if we got a massive offer for Mainoo, maybe they would consider it, especially if the player's asking to go as well. But we'll go through the rest of the news and share some thoughts on that in a second. Andy Mitten also said that Manchester United's view is that Kobbie Mainoo needs to work hard, fight for his place, and prove his coach wrong. And there's nothing wrong with that. Competition is what makes players thrive. It's sink or swim. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there, right? And I don't necessarily think having competition or, making Kobbie Mainoo fight for a place in the team. Every Manchester United player should be fighting for a place in the team. The only question I have, though, is it's got to be fair competition. We cannot have favouritism. We cannot have an Erik ten Hag situation where, regardless of performances on the pitch, players would play week in and week out. There has to be some fairness around that. And I get that, obviously, training completely different to match performances as well, because we've had players in the past that were absolutely dog shit in training by all accounts, but would turn up on a pitch on a weekend. And that's where it actually matters. And that's what we see as fans as well. We're watching Bruno might be absolutely amazing in training, but his performances on the pitch recently haven't been very good. So when we're watching it to say, well, hold on, how can Mainoo not get in front of the team? Like, there has to be some consistency. There's got to be fairness if you're going to go down that route as well. But is it, because the argument against is it the right mentality at United? If Kobbie's not willing to fight for a place, is that the right mentality for a United player? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there, but give us I'm sure you'll have thoughts on that in the comments below. Simon Jones from the Mail was saying that Kobbie Mainoo will reaffirm his wish to go out on loan from Manchester United, even though the club insists he should stay and compete for his spot. Ruben Amorim himself in the press conference on Mainoo said, I want Kobbie to stay. He needs to fight for his place, and we need Kobbie so that it's not going to change. So Amorim doubling down, saying, look, we need Kobbie. We don't want him to leave. Fabrizio Romano, though, has said that Kobbie Mainoo is asked to go on loan again. He maintains his position despite Ruben Amorim's statements. And then there's been more reports from the Mail saying that Kobbie Mainoo still wants to leave before the transfer window closes. His loan request was rejected in Thursday's meeting. He wants to play regularly in the World Cup season. He is not happy with his role of Bruno's understudies. So David Ornstein's come out as well saying the same thing, that Kobbie Mainoo is still insistent that he wants to leave. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. What do we do? What's the right or wrong? Because I've read your comments and, I hear it from both. I think there's two ways of looking at it. One, I agree that obviously every player should have to fight for a place at Manchester United, right? Getting into the first team should not be easy. It should not be a given. But as I mentioned before, it's got to be fair and consistent, though. I don't think that's been the case in the past. So I'd like to hope that if Amorim's saying, let's stay and fight for your place, if we start seeing turd performances still from Bruno Fernandes going forward, that there is actually repercussions for that. Because if Kobbie's being told to stay and fight for his place and Bruno is shit on the pitch when we watch him, then that's not fair. That's not fair for Kobbie Mainoo to say, well, hold on, where's my opportunity? How can you force somebody out if you're not giving me game time on the pitch to actually go and prove myself? Because that's where it counts. Yes, you can be the best trainer in the world, but it's what you actually do on a match day that's important. So there has to be some consistency with that. So that's the first way of looking at it. And then the second way is, if Kobbie's looking at it to say, well, actually, I'm not going to play. I do want to go. It's a World Cup year. I want to actually go somewhere where I do get the minutes and I don't really want to fight for a place. I just want to be guaranteed a place. And he's asking to leave. What do you do as a club? Do you keep him and then potentially create an unhappy player at the squad? I suppose it all just depends on what his personality is and how he is behind the scenes, because we've seen evidence before in teams where you keep a player that's asked to go and their performances drop and it creates a bit of a shitstorm. So I don't know what the right or wrong answer is, but I'm sure you'll get involved in the comments and give us your thoughts on that down below. Let's go through the rest of the transfer news. So the player that we're more likely to bring in is Senne Lammens. David Ornstein did say, though, on the midfielder that it might be a loan. They might be looking at a loan option for a midfielder. But still no names, no real links at the time of recording this video. So the more likely player we're looking to potentially bring in is Senne Lammens. So Manchester United preparing one final big push to get Senne Lammens deal done. Talks to accelerate this weekend again with Royal Antwerp, a deal on. That came from Fabrizio Romano. Romano also said that Senne Lammens wants Manchester United move. The club are now prepared to increase their offer, price tag 25 million euros. So I think we've offered like 17, and then we've potentially gone up to 20 now, potentially maybe willing to go up to 25. Obviously, we sold Garnacho. Hojlund said the here we go, so he's going. We did agree a deal with Antony, but then, you know, whatever's happening there has happened. So we do actually have a bit of money coming in from those deals where potentially we could look to, but I don't think United want to overpay neither. Ben Jacobs said that Manchester United are pushing to sign Senne Lammens this weekend, with both clubs close to agreeing a fee. However, David Ornstein has said that Senne Lammens is of interest, but not that advanced. Not that advanced that people have suggested. So, I hope he's wrong, but he's not. It's the oracle of transfers saying that he's of interested, but it's not quite as advanced as that's being suggested, with a little bit of a low blow. David Ornstein did also say that the question marks around, are we actually going to bring in a fourth goalkeeper, or do we still need to be in a position where we have to sell somebody? Onana's not going anywhere because there's just no interest in Onana. That leaves Bayindir, but then Bayindir, I think, should be our number one goalkeeper now. And then bringing in Senne Lammens with no pre-season means that you'll probably have to play Onana for a couple of games while he finds his feet, and I don't want that. What a mess. What an absolute mess. This is what happens when you leave things to the last minute and don't plan. Like who in their right mind... this is one of the baffling decisions. Who in their right mind decided, actually, let's not go for a goalkeeper. Let's keep Onana after last season. It's just, it's not the best, is it? But give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below. I'm just going to check to see if there's any updates because the news is frantic at the moment. JJ Gabriel scored a 27-minute first-half hat-trick today for the under 18s. What an absolute baller. He's going to be Mazraoui back in the squad for the Burnley game. That's interesting. So maybe he will be on the bench, but no, nothing else that I can see at the time of recording. So give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below. That's you all up to date with the latest news and transfer updates. Smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. See you in the next one.